Greatest hits on Manx Radio, and it's good to be back, Ronnie. And it's good to be back with a classic album. And Dave McLean is with us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me, Mark. Lovely to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on. It'll be taken a while. I'm sorry it's taken so long.
It's okay. I've been busy.
I know you have. Let's just, before we get on to the classic album, talk me through your musical history. So where did your musical history start?
My first gig was in Laxey Glen Gardens,
Wow.
which would have been when I was about 14. My success rate is 0. I must have been in more local bands that got absolutely nowhere than pretty well anybody else I've ever met. I've always been in local bands and loved playing. I got involved in recording pretty early on. I had a TIAC 3340 tape recorder when I was about 21, 22. And so I've always been involved in that side of things. But yes, I've had absolutely 0 success.
Well, I don't think that's true, because I think there's probably hardly anybody here over a certain age who won't have seen you play and enjoyed your playing with the bands that you've been in.
Well, you're very kind.
I think that's true.
As my friend Anglin says, nobody would pay me to play this stuff.
No. But in latter years, if I'm right in saying you focused an awful lot more on more rootsy Isle of Man sounds.
Yeah. Well, this new band, I say new band, we've been actually going for a couple of years now, Clash Vua, which means the big groove. For years, I was a big fan of Moot, the local Gaelic electronica band, and I always thought I'd love to play with them, being a bass player. I can't remember how it actually came about. I think it was because Aileen Clegg, the singer, and myself were involved in a Mona Douglas tribute a few years ago, and I think getting together with Aileen then set the spark for it. And now, it does actually, funny enough, people actually seems to like it, which is a mixture of songs written largely in Manx Gaelic with different types of world grooves, Latin, American, African, that sort of thing.
Well, I've seen you a couple of times, and I think the first time was in Laxey at the Institute down there.
Oh, yeah.
It was a fabulous night.
It was.
Hats off to it.
The whole night, yeah.
But you're just as comfortable playing keyboards, piano, aren't you?
Yeah. When I first came back to the island, which I had 20 years away from the island, came back in 91, and within a fortnight, I saw a little advert in the local paper saying about the blues club down which was at the Quarter Bridge at the time. So I sort of thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll go down and have a look. I walked in through the door, and Dave Wade, who at that time was running the blues club, came straight over to me and was so welcoming, and found out that I played a bit of piano. That was it, really. I came down the next week, and I was sort of part of what was the sort of local house band, I suppose, for the blues club. Raw Deal, it was called in those days. And I played then pretty well, sort of for the next 20 years or so.
We'll come on to festivals of nowadays and what you're doing in Peel a little later on in the week. But we must turn our attention to your choice of artist and the album. Who have you gone for?
I am a huge Tom Waits fan, for which I have to thank my darling wife, who turned me on to him years and years ago. We were on the way back from Oxford, and she said, have a listen to this, you'll love it. And I did. And I can't actually remember what it was. It would have been mid-70s, so it would have been one of his early albums. But the album I've chose is Rain Dogs, which is his 8th studio album, but was a wonderful, wonderful record. It was when he started doing slightly more off-the-wall sort of music.
Let's get a track on. What are we going to start with?
We're going to start with Jockey Full of Bourbon. One of the great things about Tom Waits is all the lyrics are so obscure that you can pretty well make of it what you like. And I think that what he's talking about here basically is a rain dog who is basically the dispossessed people of New York, and he's basically lying in a gutter full of bourbon.
Bourbon, I Houses on fire, children are
My guest is Dave McLean.
Hi again.
Thank you. And Tom Waits. We'll talk a bit more about Tom in a minute as we get ready for the next track from the album Rain Dogs. But let's talk about Peel. It's not just a destination. It's got a culture all of its own, and you're right at the heart of that.
Well, the funny thing is, when we first came back to the island in 1991, we hired Edward Bryant, the removal company.
So did we.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, a great guy, as it turned out. But one of the first things he said when I told him where the address was he had to take the stuff to is, Peel, what do you want to go there for? And at that time, I think Peel was considered to be a little bit backwards. But we loved it anyway. I mean, I've always loved Peel when I was a lad. My dad had a boat in Peel, and so we used to play golf in Peel and that sort of thing. So Peel has always been very close to me. So I was delighted that we were going there. And then, of course, opening the Centenary Centre did do quite a lot for the general cultural life of Peel, though, of course, it had always been the centre of the Gaelic community, and particularly with the Bun School opening in St John's and then Culture Vannin opening next door, who have done such a wonderful job in reinvigorating the culture.
Well, the Centenary Centre has earned a reputation of being not just a centre of excellence in terms of what they do, but it involves so many people from the community.
Well, from the beginning, that was what we wanted. We, apart from anything else, didn't have any money. So we needed as many volunteers as we could who were prepared to do things for nothing. Well, one of the great things is that actually there's a lot of men involved. We are gradually getting some ladies involved now, but men in particular, particularly when they retire, sometimes they find it difficult to have things to do with themselves. So I think this particular, the cleaning team has been a great way of involving more retired men.
Let's talk about some of the highlights down there for you over all these years. Can you pick a couple of artists or bands that you just thought, those? I mean, I've got my own, but I'm not interested in those. I want yours. What have you got for me?
Well, I think the first one have to be Eric Bibb.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
He was just with Dave Bronze at the time, just the two of them, and it sold out in 48 hours.
Wow.
I mean, I couldn't really believe it how great it, so how quickly it sold out.
Yeah.
Because for us, it was quite an expensive event, but that was a great evening. And then I think, from my point of view, probably the next best one would have been Baseku Kuyati and Ngoni Ba, who Baseku is now a worldwide star. He plays on all sorts of people's albums, but at that time he was relatively unknown. And I was very lucky. I knew Andy Kershaw quite well, who also knew his agent, a lady called Florence Arpin from Paris, who actually flew over for the gig. And it was lovely to meet her. But the gig itself was just fabulous. I mean, none of them could speak a word of English. There was about 6 or 7 of them. They'd come with this tour manager, this great guy called Sean Rogers, who was sort of very small. We had ginger dreadlocks, a beard that came down to his, to be honest, Gimli comes to mind.
Yeah.
And we took them up to the Highwayman for a meal. And they were looking at the menu. They couldn't make head nor tail of this. And Sean, after about half an hour of this faffing around, sort of marched off into the kitchen and said, 6 chicken and chips. and that's what they had. And the sound check was very funny as well. They thought they were in Germany because they said Isle of Man, Allemand. Because, of course, they all speak French.
Yes.
So Isle of Man was translated, I think, in their head to Allemand. And it took them a while for them to realise they actually weren't in Germany. And then the sound check kept on going it was a very long sound check, and they were fiddling around. And Baseku's and Goni, which is like a homemade banjo, he kept having to fix it because it was all falling to bits. And in the end, he just walked off, and they all walked off. They didn't seem to say anything, or they just walked away, and that was it. Anyway, the show itself was astonishing, and I think sort of people who were there will look back on that probably as one of the best things they've ever seen at the centre.
Right, it's a fabulous place to be in the audience, and I've been fortunate myself to play a couple of times on that lovely stage as well, and it's a great place all round. Tonight's track from Rain Dogs, Walking Spanish. Take us through this, Dave.
Yeah, well, Walking Spanish, this is something that I do know what he meant about this song because it's pretty well documented. And it was, Walking Spanish was a way that in the old days, Spanish pirates used to grab you by the scruff of the neck and your trousers and walk you to the plank. So basically, it's a way of getting you to do something that you don't want to do. And this particular song, Walking Spanish, is about this chap who is about to go to the electric chair, and he's walking Spanish down the hall. And there are all sorts of references to other people doing things that they don't want to do. And famously, I think the last couplet is something like, even Jesus walked Spanish down the hall. So it was. He has an amazing way with words, and for me, the lyrics to this song are just stupendous.
He got himself a homemade special. You know his glass is full of sand, and it feels just like a jaybird, the way it fits into his hand. He rode a blade up in his trick towel. They slap their hands against the wall. You never trip, you never stumble. He's walking Spanish down the hall. Slip him a picture of our Jesus, or give him a spoon to dig a hole. But all he done ain't no one's business. Brought any blankets for the cold. Begged him to light your on Broadway. Even the king is bowed his head. Never face looks right up at Mason. Man, he's walking Spanish down the hall. Latella's screeching for a blind pig. Punk Sanders carved it out of wood. He never sang when he got hoodwinked. They tried it all, but he never would. Tomorrow morning there'll be laundry, but he'll be somewhere else to hear the call. Don't say goodbye, he's just leaving early. Man, he's walking Spanish down the hall. Bartholomew said was whispered into the ear of blind jackdaws. All Baker told the machine was that he never broke the law. Go and tip your hat up to the pilot. Take off your watch, your rings and all. Even Jesus wanted just a little more time. when they was walking Spanish down the hall.
Greatest hits on Manx Radio with me, Marc Tyley, and my guest curator of the classic album this week is Dave McLean.
Lovely to be here, Mark, again.
Do you like that? Guest curator.
Guest curator. It sounds very posh, doesn't it? Really.
It's a nice way of saying.
Yeah. It just somebody who listens to Tom Waits a lot.
We'll talk about Mr. Waits in a moment. Some more fabulous album, Rain Dogs. I want to talk about the Isle of Man music scene because you've got a finger on the pulse of so much that's going on here. And you've spent, your whole life pretty much observing it, playing with it, recording it, being involved with it. How is the state of the Isle of Man music scene today, in your opinion?
I think it's pretty good. We also got a little house in York, so we spend a lot of time over there. And York is a city of 200,000 people. And there is much more going on the island than there is in York. So, although people might say, there's not much happens on the island, musically speaking, I think it's certainly as good as, sort of most small towns in the UK. And, really, we could do a lot worse. And it comes and goes, I suppose. But one of the great things about the island is there is some amazing talent. I mean, not only sort of old people like myself, but young people coming up. I think of people like Teresa McNulty, May Chalice, Nell Neal, all sorts of people who I wish we could do more at the centre. For some reason, and I've never quite known what it is. I don't really think the centre is designed for rock and roll. Really, it's a sit-down venue, looking at people. And although a lot of those people I've mentioned have actually played at the centre, it's not really brilliant for for indie pop, for rock and roll sort of stuff. I mean, I think one thing that we are short of on the island, and there's something I've been banging on with, particularly with my dear friend Jono Gollo, no longer with us.
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. We had this idea of about a 300 to 400 seater, well, not seater, standing venue. And that might possibly have gone ahead if, unfortunately, he hadn't passed away a couple of years ago. And I think we're still short of that, because it makes it at the centre. We have a 200-seater capacity, and that sort of puts a limit on the type of bands that we can have. If on the island there was a 400-seater venue, then I think we would be able to, sort of up our game substantially, but not as much, obviously, as they would do at the Villa.
I know what you mean. Certainly the Villa Marina Royal Hall, when it's not full, is a pretty lonely place.
It is.
And it's sterile. It can be the most amazing place.
It can. I think back to Robert Plant, possibly one of the best gigs I've ever seen in my life, anywhere.
For me, the best one I ever saw in there was Bryan Adams.
Yeah,
the acoustic
absolutely
one.
amazing.
What a night.
That's right, yeah.
And the sound was great. But when it's half full...
exactly.
Yeah.
And down in the Promenade Suite, it's a sort of okay if you're getting married, I think. But it's scarcely...
You can only do that several times. So many times.
You're so true. There again, there's not much atmosphere in that room. If we, I think that is something that's lacking. I was lucky enough to play a couple of weeks ago at Quids Inn for the first time in my life. And I loved it. There was an all-day charity event that we were lucky enough to be asked to play at. I thought it was fabulous. And then, of course, we've also got a reasonably healthy recording sort of situation, particularly with Jip these days. Jip's doing a fabulous job down there over the bridge. And that helps because, as well as playing gigs, it does your playing no end of good if you can just record it and everything.
Certainly can. Now then, another track, please, from Tom Waits, Rain Dogs. What's it going to be tonight, Dave?
Well, we're going to have Union Square tonight. The reason I've chosen this one is because a lot of people don't think of Tom Waits as an all-out rocker. But he was lucky enough to get Keith Richards to come along and play on this track. And when you hear it, you think to yourself, there's nobody else, apart possibly from Chuck Berry, who plays like that. I mean, Keith Richards actually plays a blinder. An interesting thing about the recording session apparently was that Tom was fascinated by the way that Keith Richards stands when he was playing. He was leant over so much that Tom Waits thought he must have a string attached to him up in the ceiling, because he was. How can this guy stand like that without falling over? But you hear the playing and you think, man, this is just fabulous.
Well, time is always money. All the boys on Union Square. Don't bust your ass to doomsday. Don't forget to say your prayers. Someone right there on the back street said, Papa got the brand new slack. And your brother's a handcuff on the front seat. Sit right there, boy, and you relax. Come on, honey. We're all going down, 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 down. We're going down, down, down. We're going down, down, down. Well, you spill out on the center of 14 to that drag bar there on the block. Was there on the front on the East Coast? Bank roll up on your sock. Stand right there for your pleasure. Half Puerto Rican Chinese. You got to find your baby somebody to measure. I'm gonna give me some of these, baby. Alright, yeah, we're all going down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. I'm going down, downtown. About 4 in the morning on a Sunday. Sack go drink a whiskey and chase. Half pound of festival brandy. And baby fall right off his place. Well, a guy in a sweater's off duty. Well, he's out in front of that welfare. Guy in the dress is a beauty. Go all the way, I swear you never can tell. Come on, honey, put your socks down, down, down. I'm going down, 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 downtown. Down, downtown. Woo, yeah. Down, down, down. All right. Down, down, down. Come on, down, downtown. Going down, downtown.
Greatest hits on Manx Radio. And all this week, my guest has been and is Dave McLean.
It's lovely to be here, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, I said at the beginning of the week, it's long overdue. So thanks for coming all the way in from Peel.
Yeah, the Manx Mile.
The long haul. The long haul. It's a lovely walk. I actually like walking across the island that way, down the old railway track.
Yeah, my son James, who lives in Peel, he works at Manx Telecom, and he usually takes his bike along the railway line to work. And he's lucky they've got showers where he works, so he can, sort of go most days, which is brilliant.
I think there's something special about getting into Peel. It's one of those places, we said at the beginning of the week, it has its own identity. I mean, everywhere on the Isle of Man has a different feel. But for me, Peel is special, and I can't say it any more than that.
Yeah, it is absolutely special, and I can't tell you why. It is a wonderful place. When I was very young and lived in Crosby, when I was about 11, we used to get the train to Ballacameen, where I was at school, and that was a fabulous. I think just for the first year or something like that.
Let's talk about the centre, and let's talk about plans and festivals. What's on the horizon for you at the moment, Dave?
Well, speaking personally for me, it is all about the festival, the Our Island, Our World, OIOW. We were lucky enough to get some funding for it last year from Year of Our Island, and people seemed to like it. We sold out eventually. I was very, very stressful, but a few days before the event we did actually sell out, which meant that we didn't lose too much money. And people seemed to like it and said, would you do it again? So we have done it. We've organised it again. We still have a lot of tickets to sell. So the first thing I might say, if I can, is I would be very grateful to the great listening public on the island, if you fancy 2 nights of fabulous music from around the world, please do come and join us and think about buying a ticket or two.
Dates again for that, Dave?
Friday the 30th and Saturday the 31st of August this year. We've brought it forward a week so we don't interfere with the film festival.
Yeah.
Because last year a few people who would have liked to have gone, we had it a week later and people couldn't go to both, obviously. So we've brought it forward. As well as the two concerts in the Centenary Centre on the Friday and Saturday nights, we have a Saturday afternoon global celebration, we call it, in the cathedral grounds and in the Centenary Centre and in the cathedral, and which is just behind the Centenary Centre. And we have workshops this year, for example. We have a tribal drumming and a tribal singing workshop. Chap comes over with 70 djembes from Belfast. We have a Serbian...
Home of tribal drumming,
Belfast, as we know.
As we all know.
Yeah, that's right, exactly, yeah. And then we have a Serbian dance and song workshop. We have a belly dancing workshop. And then lots of children's activities, because the event is a free family event designed really to interest young children in the wider world and the cultures that we have. I don't know whether you're aware, but we have 164 different ethnicities on the island, which is an amazing thing.
It is.
And we try and encourage some of them to come along and demonstrate their culture a bit. We have lots of live music, dancing, global food, all that sort of stuff. And last year it was a very lovely free afternoon.
You're a force for good, Mr. McLean. You're a force for good. Yes, you are. And thank you for all the work you've done.
Thank you.
We're not just with the centre, with the Centenary Centre, but everything. All those years of effort, making things work. Because without people like you doing it, we'll all sit around saying, oh, wouldn't it be nice if? When you turn that into something that happens. So well done.
I think what all it is I just get very bored very quickly.
Well, thank you for your boredom and turning it into such energy.
Thank you.
Let's have the final track of the week from this incredible album, Rain Dogs. Tom Waits, what's it going to be?
It's going to be Downtown Train, which probably people will for once recognise because, of course, Rod Stewart did the version, though it was memorably reviewed as the original Tom Waits version is a glass of bourbon. The Rod Stewart version is a pina colada with a little umbrella.
Dave, it's been an absolute joy.
It's been a joy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Outside another yellow moon has punched a hole in the nighttime, yes. I climbed to the window and down to the street. I'm shining like a new dime. The downtown trains are full of all those Brooklyn girls. They try so hard to break out of their little worlds. Well, you wave your hand and they scatter like crows. They have nothing that will ever capture your heart. They're just thorns without the rose. Be careful of them in the dark. Oh, if I was the one you chose to be your only one. Oh yeah, can't you hear me now? Can't you hear me now? Will I see you tonight on a downtown train? Every night it's just the same. You leave me lonely now. I know your window and I know it's late. I know your stairs and your doorway. I walk down your street and past your gate. I stand by the light of the four-way. You watch a massive fall. Oh baby, they all have heart attacks. They stay at the carnival, but they'll never win you back. I'll see you tonight on a downtown train. Every night is just the same. Oh baby, well I see you tonight on a downtown train. Oh,
My thanks to Dave McLean for a cracking week on Greatest Hits, choosing tracks from Tom Waits in the classic album feature. There'll be more of the same right here on manxradio.com and on Greatest Hits, Monday to Thursday, just after 6. I'm Marc Tyley, and thanks for joining us on this Greatest Hits podcast.